real estate is how people put families, members through college, how they started businesses. That's how people have been leveraging their entire life. There's folks on social that say, oh, don't invest in real estate. Don't buy real estate. That's the worst thing that you can do. But you always have to ask yourself that question, like, why is that person saying it? Is it because there's a lack of inventory? You're wanting to get people away from buying more property so then maybe you and your group could come in and get the inventory?
Our next guest is a seasoned real estate expert, developer, vice president, and broker manager. Our guest, Irving Cham, defied all odds, shattered glass ceilings. He came from humble beginnings, born into an immigrant family from Haiti, and his diverse experience made him the man that he is today, dedicated to empowering others and building up the urban community. Please welcome Irving Cham. Peace, my brother.
Peace, bro.
Yo.
Yo. True. Can I take you everywhere I go so you could do that intro for me?
I got
my
you.
Office meetings, corporate, everywhere, bro. I need that type of intro.
Yo.
Like that energy is crazy.
It would be my honor and pleasure.
Thank you. True. Thank you, Mac. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I think this is amazing what y'all doing, the opportunity. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
So in real estate, there seems to be two arguments, right? Grant Cardone and others have said that investing and buying real estate isn't the way to build generational wealth. What is your perspective on that?
Well, there's no other investment vehicle in order for you to transfer that much wealth legally in our country or in the world. You got to think about it. Like, how many people that you know that can move 3, 4, 500,000 at a time just by buying, selling, or even leveraging, which is borrowing from a property, from an asset. So that doesn't happen in any other investment class. I don't care if you got stocks, bonds, insurance vehicles, whatever it is, whatever investment vehicles that you use, you can't compare that to real estate. Some people might not have the appetite to do real estate. And Mac, you know very well, there's not a lot of people that want to deal with the nuances such as being a landlord or doing business on a daily basis, dealing with the maintenance part, dealing with the taxes part. Like those things people don't necessarily, they might not want to deal with it, but that's just more because they don't know, right? Like you have to understand that there's two generations of folks, right? We have a generation of folks that they've had property in their families and in their lineages for hundreds and maybe 1,000 years, right? They've had that. Then there's a group of folks that are just now coming into it. They may have one generation, or they might be the first generation of folks to actually have property, to actually go through the sales process, the living in the home that they own, or to even go through someone bequeathing a property to them in the event that they've passed or something like that, or someone's passed. So this is a unique time. I know that there's folks on social that say, oh, don't invest in real estate. Don't buy real estate. That's the worst thing that you can do. But you always have to ask yourself that question, like, why is that person saying that? Out of all the things that they can say, why are they just saying that and they're targeting this specific space? Why are they targeting the real estate industry? How many of those people, if we go back, look at their real estate, not even real estate, their investment portfolios and see how much money that they've made from real estate, and then ask them, all right, let's go back in time and remove all of the real estate transactions out of your trajectory, or out of your wealth, or out of your entire business portfolio, and let me see how wealthy you are today.
That's true. Because even some of the ones that are saying that, they built their wealth mainly on real estate.
Absolutely. Ask Grant how many properties and units and doors that he owned. 10 years ago, he was just telling us how many doors he owns. Now he's saying that not to go buy doors. Like, why is that? Oh, is it because there's a lack of inventory? You're wanting to get people away from buying more property so then maybe you and your group could come in and get the inventory? right? Like, I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's always how you got to think, because there's so many different things that they can tell you not to invest in, right? They can tell you not to invest in crypto. They can tell you not to invest in Forex. They can tell you not to invest in these crazy things that's on the stock market, but that's not what they're saying. They're saying not to invest in real estate, which is crazy, because real estate is how people put families, members through college, how they started businesses. That's how people have been leveraging their entire life, real estate, right? Because we know that's a tangible asset that we can leverage. We can control it. We could control whether we want the equity to go up, how much equity we want to use, if you want to make an improvement to it and build more equity, or if you want to refinance it and do all that stuff. Wow. Only real estate.
Indeed. So a question too that I've had, because before having you on the show, I reached out to my audience and people that I know. I said, listen, I got a real estate expert coming in. What questions do you have?
Yeah, sure.
So something that came up is that, and mind you, these are people, including myself, who are I did own properties, but for the most part, and don't have the experience, saying that that it's oversaturated, that things are oversaturated and too expensive. What can you offer to people who are thinking like that? And these are people who want to get in, but they just feel like they don't have an opportunity.
Well, there's truth to that, right? Like, the market is expensive, but the cost of not getting into the market is way more expensive than the price of the market today. The price that we're talking about is, we're talking a couple points in terms of interest, right? 2 years ago, interest rates were average 3-4%, fine. But the prices of the homes were a lot higher, and there's a lot more people in the market. The industry is a lot busier. It was just a lot of things going on. So with that, the amount of transactions increased. Then that caused a little bit of some inflammation or inflation in the market, which is cool. It happens. It's a part of business, because the flip side of that is, as the prices of the homes are selling higher, people that own homes, their equity is growing too. So we're actually building wealth as well as selling real estate, and people are going into homes where they're calling these places this is their space. They're now claiming this environment, and now part of the cities, helping the economy, helping the local businesses, and all that stuff too. There is a cost, right? If you're comparing your interest rate, what it would have been in 2021, 22 versus your interest rate in 2024 and 25, probably, yeah, you're going to probably see a decent difference, which are usually we're looking at $500 to $700 a month in difference, which is a lot after you compound that. Average person stays in the home for 5 years before they move. A lot of times they look at it, oh, I'm going to be paying this over 30 years. Most people move within 5 to 7 years, right, Matt?
Yep, absolutely.
So they're moving in 5 to 7 years, which is cool. So you got to pay that, fine. Between that time, right, there's a higher probability that interest rates might go back down. Guess what you could do? You could refinance at that point in time. And while you were paying down your mortgage, guess what happened? Equity grew too. So now the value, you're paying down the mortgage, which is great. And then the value of the property has increased. So you're compounding your equity as you're going along. The worst place or the worst position to be in is not in that position at all, which is being a renter, right? You're a renter now. 100% of everything that you put out there that you're paying for your rent goes right to your landlord. You have no equity, no asset. You don't have the ability to use the tax savings, the tax benefit, which is one of the biggest subsidies that we have. A lot of people think that, oh, it's a Section 8, this, that, and the third. It's not Section 8. The biggest subsidy that we have in our country is the mortgage interest deduction, right? That every year, if you own a property, you're able to file your taxes and get money back from paying mortgage interest. People don't understand that. That's a benefit. If you're a renter, you don't get that benefit. There's a bunch of other benefits that you don't receive as a renter, but to each his own, because there is a space where there are people that just don't want to deal with the maintenance and everything else, which is respectable. Just like we have people that don't want to own a car. They only want to do rideshare, right? Which is respectable. Like if that's what you think and that's how you feel and that's where you're comfortable, well, to each his own. But just understand that it's a lot more expensive, because you know that. right? Someone's making a profit for you being comfortable, which is fine. But to me, I think one of the most important things for people to do is to own something. Own up.
You know, I really appreciate everything that you're sharing, because you're bringing light to a lot of things that our community is just not aware of. And one of the businesses that I have is I'm a signing agent.
Oh, I love that.
Indeed. So I see HELOCs going on, and a lot of times some of my clients, you know, they share about what they're doing with the HELOCs. Sometimes they're paying down debt. Sometimes they're paying for their children's education, which is something you mentioned. And sometimes they're like, yo, we're fixing this up to bring more value to the home that they occupy already.
Absolutely.
So I definitely bear witness, just from my line of work, some of the things that you're saying.
I love that. And you get to see the smiles. Like, this is something that's great, right? Being able to leverage a place like it's home, and to be able to use your home as an investment vehicle, or even as a bank. Let's just make it simple. Being able to use your home as a bank, not just you, but your entire family. A place where this is providing you shelter, and it's also providing you financial shelter too. Because as you're working, you're doing that, you're paying down the mortgage, equity's building. Now you have equity, you can invest in a different business, which can change the trajectory of your entire family. You can pay off somebody's student loans, which could change the trajectory of their lives, right? Or you could just do whatever, you can make it a better home. And that means that, again, you're compounding the equity.
Yeah, what you're saying is so powerful. I know I keep saying that, but it really is, because the government paid for my education, right? I have a degree. But if the government didn't pay for my education, I wouldn't have been able to go to college.
See?
So when you're talking about like changing the trajectory of things, like that's a real thing, because going to college, getting my degree, and essentially learning my trade definitely changed my life. You know, I went from coming from Patterson, being a drug dealer, to now having a profession and a skill, and changing not only my life, but my children's and the generations to come.
Bro, that's all it takes. And I love the fact that we're getting into this side of the conversation, because I think this is the most important thing about what we do. So let's negate the money, the financial aspect of real estate. Let's just look at the housing side of it, right? Being able to provide people with a place to call home, shelter, a foundation, how that impacts not just that person, but the generations to come. People don't understand when you can take someone from an environment, a tough environment, whether it's has its socioeconomic nuances, whether it's the political stuff, or it's just different environmental things. You remove that person from that negative place, or the place that's hurting them, and you put them in their family in a better place. I guarantee you, they'll live longer, they'll be happier, and the generations will benefit from that, from that going forward.
You know, again, it's so on point. So people who are very familiar with my story, who know me, you know, I'm an author. I speak to children, like the youth, which I know you do too. We're going to get into that.
Yes.
A lot of time, mothers come up to me and they ask me, True, my son, he's in the streets, what can I do? And one of the first things that I tell them is get him out of the hood.
You have
Take him out. Now, I love where I'm from. I love my people. But sometimes that's just the fastest and easiest way to save someone's life.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, there's a lot of things that go on that influence the minds of the youth in those communities.
Yeah, like that's the socioeconomic things and the nuances that I spoke of. I lived it, right? Growing up on the street in the neighborhood I grew up during that time, Irvington, East Orange, Newark, like those were really tough spaces for a kid in the 90s and early 2000s, right? Like the 80s, they had their thing, which was a big epidemic of like opioids and drugs and everything else, which we understand. But the 90s was more so a remnants of that on top of them and their, I want to say, economical depression too, that we saw in our neighborhoods, where then people just got into a really, really tough space. And it was just havoc. It was havoc.
In addition, don't lose your thought, please.
Yeah.
The 80s, what they did is not just the 80s, they ripped homes apart.
Yes.
Because you had mothers and fathers.
Mass incarceration.
that and addicted to crack cocaine. Now they're fiends. Now the grandparents are raising the children. And so the 90s into early 2000s, same generation, are a byproduct of that. But please continue.
Yeah. So, you finished the statement. That's exactly what I wanted to say. And because of that, right, our environment at that time was tough. It was a tough environment when you had the mothers, dads, aunts, uncles on drugs. The grandmas are raising like kids, toddlers, which was difficult, right? Because grandmas that means that they still had to work.
And grandmas back then were real grandmas. Like I'm a grandfather, right?
Wow.
But
I can't even believe that you're a grandfather, bro. Wow.
Yeah. And grandmothers and grandfathers back then were like old. Like no disrespect to no one, but like we're really old.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And we saw that. And for people to overcome, like for people like you, Mac, to overcome that and then be able to pour back into the community, that's why it's important. But on the housing side of it, like those people, it's just like anything else. I hate like when people say like, oh, you're a product of your environment. That's an excuse. But no, if you're born in one of those environments and you made it out, bro, you're a super, super lucky person, because it's just a snap of a finger and your entire life could have changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether you could have been this, that, whatever, gun violence, like, because, those communities were policed different. So you had a higher probability of having more interactions with police, things like that, people, neighbors, all that. Like, it was a different time. And for someone to come out of that, kudos to you. Yeah. Definitely kudos to you.
I appreciate that. And you as well. You mentioned you were living in those areas as well. And then you'll eventually move to Maplewood, which is a more suburban community, and how the diversity of those experiences made you who you are. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So specifically to growing up in Irvington, East Orange, Newark, my parents moving to Maplewood was, again, the biggest blessing ever. But what I didn't do was forget where I came from. And I don't want to make it seem like, oh, it's the cliche, don't forget where you came from. But I understood the experiences, right? I would constantly reflect and understand why. Like, I wanted to know why. I wanted to see, like, all right, like, why was this happening? Why did this happen in this specific area? And how, and as an adult, can I give back to make that situation not be the same for someone else? I don't want them to go through that experience, right? Like, that is the gift that God gave us, for us to go through our experiences and then pay it forward and pay it back. If we don't do that, we've lost. We have to give it back. We have to pay it forward, and we have to give it back. Because then that means that he put us, or he got us through, or the higher power got us through this tough time and put us in a better position, and then we did nothing with it. What does that make us? And why would we let that person or that higher power down?
Indeed, I feel it's my responsibility.
You understand what I'm saying? It becomes like, I'm glad that you used the word responsibility, but it's my duty, in my point. It's my duty to give back. It's my duty to have these conversations. It's my duty for me. Whatever I learn, I should be able to pour it back and give it back to someone else to benefit them, right? Because that's the proverbial, it takes a village to raise a child. No, it takes the village to keep the village going. And it takes people like us, like you, me, Mac, out there having conversations, having thoughtful conversations, being extra intentional with what we're saying, who we're speaking to, in a direction that we see that the world should go in. Indeed. Especially in our communities.
One of my, you mentioned the proverb about a village. One of my other favorite African proverbs is, I am because we are, and we are because I am. Absolutely. So if I'm doing good and you're not, that's still me.
Absolutely.
Indeed. So as far as the diverse experiences, how were you able to extract both experiences and not just get consumed with with the ideology of I'm from the hood or I'm this now? Because a lot of people, they
play on that. That's a ploy. That's a ploy. I'm from the hood. I made it out the hood. Follow me. Look at me. Look at me. No, like, I'm not ever going to glorify the hood. The hood is not a place to be glorified. The hood is a place for us to fix, not for it to be glorified. I think that is the direction that most like of the entertainers, people that want to like they want to shine. That's what they do. We don't glorify the hood. Why? Because if we had a choice, the hood wouldn't be the way that it is. We would want the hood to be not the hood. We want it to be the suburbs. If we had the choice, right? Then we could glorify it. We could talk about it just like we talk about Short Hills, Summit, and all the other places.
Indeed. And, you know, what I like to also tell people is, I don't say the N-word, so I'm going to say use the N-word, that we are not that. When you see people acting in a certain way, that was an experiment. That's a byproduct of certain things that happen to a people. That's not who we are. I don't even like to call that my culture anymore. No. You know what I mean? Because my culture now, as someone who knows better from studying my history and lineage, reflects higher. Reflects the mothers and fathers of civilization.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, that's not our culture. What you see on TV, what's being glorified in hip hop, that's not our culture. Our culture is rich. Our culture has just as much value as everyone else. The thing is, people don't like telling that story because that's not what sells.
Exactly. When you look at some of the bigger broadcasting companies, you know, like Viacom, BET, and all of them, they're not owned by us, but they're the pretty much they're the gatekeepers of what the world sees as Black culture.
Yes.
And oftentimes it is negative when that is not our culture. As y'all are saying, this is our culture. You know, people coming together and building up. So no, that is very important that that's shared.
Indeed.
I love that, Mac.
And we have to reflect and look deeper on why being righteous and conscious doesn't sell. Because people are interested in it, right? Mm-hmm. But there's an agenda to push that. Well, let me say there was an agenda to push that away and promote something else.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we look at, you mentioned the 80s and early 90s, when there was more of positive hip hop, right? Conscious messages and music, that stuff was selling. Yes. I tell everybody all the time. So a big spark in my transformation was the nation of gods and earths and the nation of Islam, right? So back then, it was also cool to be smart. Like, it was cool to wear ankhs, and it was cool to, you know what I mean, to represent yourself in an intelligent way. And then you can tell by the names of the rappers, right? You had King Asiatic, Rakim. You know, there were strong, powerful names that meant something to now little whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Go down
So, you know, I truly believe, based on my studies and observation, that there was also an agenda. And not so, you know, when people say it doesn't sell, it's not that there isn't a market for it. It's that there was an agenda tied for it not to sell.
Of course. And you got to also think about like human minds and what grabs people's attention, right? Like, for example, bad news always travels a lot faster than good news, right? Horror movies sell better than any love story or anything else, right? People like action, people like guns, and that's just because it's the fascination of the mind and because of the dopamines that get released when you see those type of things or you hear those type of things. That's what excites people. Then that causes a sale, that causes people to be attracted to it, so on and so forth. But if you also look at it from the component of like, there's this other thing, like when people are amongst educated folks, like when you see a group of folks that's super educated, super focused, hyper focused on certain things, you see the amazing things that they can do. Unfortunately, that's not being broadcasted, but you do see in certain media channels that you'll see a 13-year-old scientist, or you'll see we have 14-year-olds graduating college, all this great news, and we have to take it out of the major media's hands, and as people start promoting the positive stuff too, right? We can't always look to them, the Viacoms, the BETs, and NBCs, Universal Studios, and all the media companies, because their agenda is to make money and get ratings. We know that. Cool. Our agenda should be to promote positivity, promote all the positivity in the world that you see. Promote every single thing. Like, if you're doing something positive, your brother's doing something positive, your cousin or someone that you don't know, someone that your cousin follows, and you saw them do something positive, you repost that, you talk about it, you share it. You be the one to be the voice of that person. Don't leave it to the media companies. You know why? Because you guys got this going on. You got a podcast right now running the world. YouTube on fire. Podcasts are getting all types of deals and advances and contracts and subscriptions and pay models. Like, this is the space and this is the era that we have the opportunity to change all that, because we do have positive brothers and sisters that get into a room and that can have thought-provoking conversations, very intentional conversations, and conversations that not just we benefit off of, but other people, even outside of our race and culture, can benefit off of. And that's the most important thing, believe it or not. Yes, we want to teach our people, show our people, have our people understand, but we also need other cultures to understand our culture and understand that what they see portrayed in the media isn't necessarily what the real culture of or our community is.
Indeed, I think that that's very important. I always tell the story when I was in college, how this woman from Europe, right? We were both in an X-ray program together. She pulled me aside one day with tears in her eyes. I always tell the story. And she was like, man, True, I'm so sorry. She was apologetic. And I was like, for what? What's going on? And she was like, if I would have saw you in the street, I would have like clutched my purse and walk across the street. And now to see you, a smart person, you're so positive and so kind. I just feel so ashamed. And so it is important that we tell our story. And what I personally stopped doing is just whining about it, because what I like about your perspective is very empowering. Absolutely. And it's not to say that our people didn't experience certain things. It's not to say that we are not victims.
No.
However, it's time to stop relying on other people and tell our story, do for self. And at this stage of the game, for real, we can do that. And this is nothing new. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad been teaching about doing for self, and there's been so many others. So this is nothing new, but it's definitely about now, like, not relying on other people.
And an important thing to add to that is now we don't really have to, because as you mentioned, like, yes, there's bigger companies, but what's everybody on now? They're on social media.
Yeah.
They're on YouTube.
Yep.
And it gives the quote unquote little people the opportunity to really put their message out there.
Absolutely.
Even you and I, when it comes to networking, we met through social media.
Yeah.
You and I, we connected through an event, but it's all within the same, because I'm sure that event, it came on our radar through social media. Yep. So it is very important that we don't wait on the next person to present us in a certain way. We have to take that and really just put it out there for the world.
And you're a living, breathing example of that, because, you were born to Haitian immigrant parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Indeed. I'm Dominican, by the way.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Hey, same
Que lo
thing.
que es dice.
Ya tú sabes. First generation born here, right? And for me, you really are like a star to me, a rock star. Not because,
likewise,
thank you. You rose up. You're a vice president of one of the biggest, Mac taught me, the biggest franchises, right? And that's not the norm. Mm-mm. So as I was thinking about this interview and developing questions, and some people, and I got to definitely get to the questions that people were telling me, I was like, man, my man must have went through some things. And that's the first thing. My man must have went through some things to get to that position.
Absolutely.
The second thing is, how did he even know that position existed? Like, how was he, because I just feel like, not just feel, I also know that there's a lot of things that we're not privy to in the community. And that's why, for Raw Success, it's very important for us to have these type of guests and whatnot, because we want to just bring awareness to success and all of its different faces and perspectives and how they look, right? In vehicles. So walk us through how you chose to become a real estate agent and then rose up the ranks to vice president, broker, manager. I didn't even know what a broker manager was. Mac had to tell me. So, walk us through that journey.
Well, in the simplest terms, it wasn't me. It was God's will. It was the Lord's will, bro. Like, I would not be here today without the Lord. 100%. The higher power brought me from wherever I was, and my gift, I feel like inherently my gift is to be in this industry and to provide and shine as much light and insight to people outside of the industry as well as in the industry. Like, I'm here to make this industry transparent. I'm here to make it strong. And I'm also here to build the best of the best folks that's around, right? So when people say like, oh, how did you get it? Like, legit, I had this thought in my brain, maybe at like 7 years old, of me having a position at a company and it had to do with real estate. Like, it may have been a little skewed because, again, I had the brain of an 8-year-old. So I probably thought that I was going to be like, what's his name from DuckTales? Like Scrooge. yeah, Scrooge McDuck and Filthy Rich and whatever.
Swimming in gold.
Yeah, swimming in gold. That could have been my thought process. But I'm telling you, like I manifested that as a child. I manifested being great and being in a position not to just benefit me, but to benefit my people and everyone that's around me. Like, I manifested that, and I had some really good people around me at the right time. I'm telling you, like, there's people that brought me from wherever I was to the place that I am, and I'm so thankful for them. So thankful. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank them. My family, my mentors, all the people that just gave me a shot, all the people that listened to me, all the people that understood that, like, if I made a mistake, that you have to charge that to my mind and my immaturity, and that there's a lot more in me, and you just had to be patient and wait to see it. Like, I'm so blessed to have those folks, and there's a lot of folks that I've met and I still have them in my corner, and I look forward to seeing the next group of folks that's going to continue supporting me in this journey, because it's a journey. Like, in my eyes, in my opinion, this is just the beginning. Right? Like, yes, I'm working. Like, so this is not just the biggest franchise. Like, Coldwell Banker is one of the most oldest companies. It's been around for almost 120 years. 120 years. Not only that, they're in all these different countries, big corporation, has a corporate structure and all this other stuff. And I'm not doing a commercial for Coldwell Banker, but I'm telling you, the size and also the enormity of me having the position that I have there. What does that mean? And it's a flat hierarchy too. So in my role, I get to speak to the CEOs of all the different brands. I get to speak to the branch managers all across the country. I get a chance to have thought-provoking conversations with the people that impact the industry directly. Like, the people that impact the industry. I'm not talking about commission. I'm not talking about like getting paper signed. I'm talking about this stuff, housing. I'm talking about opportunity. I'm talking about growth, financial literacy at an early age, financial literacy in places where we need it at an earlier age. And not only for the students or for the kids, and also for the parents, right? Like, that's the position I'm in, and I have that opportunity. And that's why I said it's not even where it's a responsibility. It's my duty to get this out. It's my duty to speak to these folks. It's my duty to go out and educate and inform and empower as many people as possible. Because if I'm not doing that, all those people that worked with me, pushed me, gave me the opportunity, gave me a shot, took the risk on me, all of those people, I would be letting them down. My son, my family, I'm letting them down. You know what kind of hypocrite I would be if I took all the knowledge and said, you know what, this is only for me. I'm not telling nobody the sauce. I'm not telling anybody the secrets. I'm keeping it for me. You know what type of hypocrite I would be?
Yeah. So at Raw Success, we consider ourselves a university.
Yep.
Where people can tune in and come here and learn, right?
Yep.
So if you can create an avatar of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right, and create a formula to success, so to speak. Tell us about your mindset, your habits, your behaviors, your actions that allowed somebody from Irvington, East Orange, Newark, become who you are today, sitting in that, sitting with those type of people, CEOs and all of that. Like, What is it about you that manifested that?
It's a compilation of a few things. I would say you got to check your ego first and foremost. I think that gets in a lot of people's way. Don't matter where you come from. I think ego is one of the biggest barriers in most folks' way. And you also have to be okay with not being the smartest person in the room. Putting yourself in a space where you're uncomfortable, because most people don't like that, right? They want to be the know-it-all in the room. I'm okay with not being the know-it-all, and most of the time, I'm the least smartest person in the room. And I'm okay with that. You know why? Because A, it's making me better. It gives me something to look forward to. And I'm going to learn a lot of stuff from these people. I'm going to learn so much, and I'm going to get a chance to teach them about me too, because now they have like a lot of the people at that stage, they haven't had exposure to a person like me, right? And I'm not just talking about a black person. I'm talking about a person with my type of brain, the way that I act, the way that I react, and all those things. So they haven't had that type of exposure. So I get them I have the opportunity to teach them in terms of exposure to me, also have them understand that like there's different nuances in our neighborhoods, our areas, and all that other stuff that we all could work together as a collaborative on, and how me working with them will be able to benefit them, me, and the generations to come. Why? Because I have a diverse way of thinking. I look at things totally different. I look at things very different from the average person. So with that said, I'm looking at it, I'm having conversations, and I'm telling them like this is, or I'm speaking to them and I'm trying to convince them, because I can't say I'm telling them, I'm trying to convince them to understand like, oh, this is what we could do next. This is the next growth market right here. We should look at these groups of folks, the Black, brown, indigenous, like that's going to be this is going to be a growth market. This is going to be a space. There will be more mixed kids in our country than you've ever seen before. And you have to be able to speak to that.
What allowed you to even sit at the table to have those conversations?
That's a good question.
Right?
That's a great question.
That's the first piece. The second one is, why do they trust you?
Ooh, true. You hit me with a 2-piece right there. I know you box. You just hit me with a 2-piece. How did I get there? I fought. There's times where I felt stupid. I felt like I wasn't good enough, and I kept going. Like, those are some of the characteristics that you're going to need. You're going to have to be relentless. Tim Grover wrote a really good book called Relentless. He was the coach for Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and he was their physical coach, but also their mental coach. I would definitely tell anybody and everybody to read that book. It's a really good book. There's just a level of relentlessness that you need. Like, I don't want you to be relentless at a job that you don't love, or at doing something that you don't love. If you love it, be relentless at it. If you love it, do not take no for an answer. And when they give you no, when they say no, because it's going to come, you just take it on the chin and with a smile and ask for the feedback and correct yourself. Because regardless of what, people could have their biases, there could be barriers, whatever it is. If you're good enough, they're not going to say no. Or they could only say no, but for so long. But you just got to be good enough. You got to be able to put in that work. Like, regardless of what, you got to make sure that you're the best person in the room. Like, I tell my son that all the time, which, like, I got some crazy news about my son today where I'm like, it's so exciting, but I can't share it. But I would say, like, it's the same mentality. Like, you got to make sure you're the best person. There's no excuses. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if that kid's white. I don't care if that kid's Indian. I don't care if that kid's Asian. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. You got to work harder. I don't care if he's 6 foot tall and you're only 4'11". I don't care. I don't care if he's a bigger kid. You go out there and get it. If you want it bad enough, you go out there and get it. No excuses. Like, I think we've got into a place where because of all of the history, you might not agree, and because it's a bit controversial, because of all the history they told us about ourselves, we feel like we're less than, and we have to always gravitate to an excuse as to why we didn't get this, versus saying and taking the responsibility, yo, I didn't put in enough work. I didn't read the book. I didn't read the workbook. I didn't take the classes. I didn't take the courses. I didn't do the online prep that I should have done. I didn't go to the gym. That's why I'm sick. I'm not sick because of whatever. I didn't put in the work. I have not been eating healthy. That's why I'm overweight. That's the problem. I think that we are so easily guided towards like, use the excuses. But guess what? If you use the excuses, you're going to stay an excuse. You're going to be an excuse. You want to be the best person in the room each and every time. You got to put in the work. We got to put in the work. I put in the work. I read so many books and asked for so many one-on-ones. True. I tell you, that's why I have so many mentors. I ask for the one-on-ones. I ask for the feedback. I tell people, what can you do to make me better? What flaws do you see in me? How can I get to this next level? Irv, you're close enough. Because what I want to be is a CEO, right? And it's not that I can't be the CEO of my own business. I've done that before. But no, I want to be a CEO of one of the biggest real estate companies in the world. Why? Because I know what that looks like for an entire generation of folks. Because I saw what happened with Barack. When Barack became president, I don't care what your affiliation, Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care. Bipartisan, like, that doesn't matter. I'm talking about when my son, or when kids, or when adults saw that there was a black president, they said, wow, I can do that too. Mm-hmm. How many people that did that inspire? Well, people don't understand, after that happened, college enrollment actually went up. People started taking all these professional courses. You started seeing people taking initiative in their careers and in their lives. That wasn't by mistake. That wasn't by accident. That was from what they saw. They were inspired. I want to be that inspiration. Even if I'm sacrificing where I could probably make more money now doing my own thing, but I'm saying I want to keep this corporate ladder thing going just because it's actually defying what most people think that you can't do. Like, I'm defying that. I'm like, you can't be a president of a real estate company, or you'll see one day. You'll see.
Yeah, see, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask was just with being a managing broker with such a big company, there's not many minority brokers in general. I think you're probably the only, minority manager broker that I know, which is one of the reasons why I thought this would be a powerful interview. So, you're speaking to that point. What were some of the challenges? Because I'm assuming, I don't want to put it out there that it was, but what were some of the challenges that you had
getting
being a minority?
Getting an interview.
Okay.
Getting an interview is tough. That's what people don't understand. You're talking about how do you get there. Getting the interview is tough. But guess what? I didn't give up. That's what happens. Like, we give up. No. Don't give up, because we're taught, because we have limiting beliefs, because of how we've been raised and everything else. You do NLP, so you understand that. But it's one of those things where you gotta erase a lot of the stuff and the baggage that your family, friends, teachers put on you, and start as this new phenomenal person that no one can tell you that you can't do things. You put a baby in your position, because their mind is basically saying like, I have no fears. No one's told me nothing. I'm not even old enough. My brain hasn't been formulated enough for me to start having fears and limiting beliefs and everything. That's why they're able to swim. So you put a baby, let's just say they're able to, a baby that's grown into a man child, and they haven't had people tell them no ever in their life. Like, the word no does not exist in their life. Let's see how far they'll go. let's see how far they'll go. They might be the next Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or even a guy from NVIDIA, as he's the most powerful man in the world now, as you can see.
What would you say is the key to success?
The key to success. You got to have grit. You got to have grit. Angela Duckworth wrote a book called Grit. And that's what you need, man. You need a grit. You need to get scrappy, man. You got to get scrappy. You got to get dirty. You got to put in the work. Like, this success thing is not easy, and don't let no one tell you that it is, because if they do, they tell you a lie. And if it does come easy, that means that could get taken away just as easy. So embrace the battle, embrace the tough, embrace the dirt, embrace the nose, embrace that, because that's kind of like that's your shield in a sense, because you went through all that, right? Like, if I went through fire, I'm no longer afraid of fire. If I went through flood, I'm no longer afraid of water. If I went through wind, I'm no longer afraid of wind. Now my exterior is just as strong as everything else, as everybody else.
You know, it's interesting you say that. In my book, I reference, this is not a way to plug my book.
Plug your book.
Thank you. It's called The Power of Choice. You Are Not Stuck, by the way, by True Kepra. Thank you. I forgot the name of the chapter, but there's a chapter in there where I talk about how, like, you know, because I was raised with some real gangsters. And this is no shot to them. Mm-hmm. But I observed that a lot of people who I grew up with that were tough, and they are tough, when it came to things like that, like transforming their lives, getting into an industry, things of that, they fold.
Every time. True. I promise you. That's why I said, like, it's by default. The hood is a place that became the hood by default. It's not by, like, choice. It's by default, right? If the most gangsters folks, you put them in a room, that's why they usually fold in court, right? Because they're in a room not full of other gangsters. They're in a room full of people that have degrees and all this other stuff, where they shrink. And that's where you should be standing tall in court. But they shrink. That's why I said this is by default. Like, the hood is the hood by default. Like, if you really want to look at it, if we were teaching, or if like, let's just think of the curriculum in urban areas. If the urban area curriculum was different at an early age, let's just say kindergarten, you started teaching people or kids at an early age about who they are, what they can do, no limiting beliefs. You could be whatever you want in this world. What do you choose to be? Oh, I'm too young. Okay. You're a doctor. You're an engineer. You're a scientist. You're a brain surgeon. You're an investor. You just put them in that space and say, that's what you are. That's who you are. That's who you're going to be. This is what they make. This is their life's trajectory. This is what that life will look like for you. At that age, expose them to that. Take them to field trips to the big pharma companies, the doctor's offices, the lawyers. Like, take them to those type of field trips. Expose them to those type of people, that career. Cool. Instead of teaching them the regular reading, science, math, how about having them read literature, Greek mythologies, having them understand science at a whole different level, like introducing science at its highest level to them. You see their growth, their trajectory will be insane. Why? I know this because that was the Montessori side of learning, right? That's what the whole Montessori way of teaching our kids, that's what it was, exposing them to things at an earlier age.
My two children went to Montessori. Yeah, one just graduated.
You see what I mean? It's a different exposure. I seen it.
And part of it, which is what I like too, is that they come from the space of they're teaching the curriculum based on how the child likes to learn. So like me, I'm not good with my hands. Like I can barely hang up a wall, right? So hang up a picture on the wall. I'm more of like a psychological. That's always been my thing.
Yeah.
However, we can learn the same thing, except you'll be using your hands and I'll be using my psychological mind to figure it out. And I also know a lot of children who were homeschooled, and those children are amazing. And actually, Mac's children who are homeschooled are super advanced.
Really?
So yeah, he's not the only one.
Shout out Trey. I have to shout her out because she's the one that takes care of majority of the homeschooling. But yeah, my 4-year-old daughter's reading at 4. My 7-year-old just start learning algebra now. Like
7 years old. He speaks low. So let me speak for him. 7 years old, learning algebra, knows algebra.
No, yeah, she's learning it now. So, but
I don't know algebra.
Yeah, I know.
It goes into what you're saying, and she has to check me on it sometimes about limiting beliefs. You say it just like that, and we have to highlight that because when it comes to what a child can learn, we're the limiting belief.
We're the
behind it all.
barrier.
We're the
barrier.
Yeah.
Like we get mad as adults. We get mad at our kids for not doing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know why they don't do it? Is because we taught them not to do it. Whether you know it or not, they learn from your behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, and even when it comes to just race and some of the challenges, like I'll share a story with me. Like within the first, I think this was maybe the second year in real estate, and I was going to show a $1 million home, So I'm thinking in my head like, oh, and I had my locks then too. I'm like, oh man, they're gonna see me coming with my locks, right? Yeah. I'm gonna have my locks. This could probably gonna be some wealthy family. They're gonna look down on me and think this, that, and the third. But I still went and I still did it, and it was very like reflective of my own limiting beliefs because one. The family that was seeing the $1 million home, they were Spanish. They weren't even white. That was one limiting belief right there.
That's a bias. You see what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
We all have them.
Exactly. And then we connected. They loved the house. We were able to, we unfortunately didn't win that offer.
Yeah.
But I won overall because it made me learn myself more, so... Yeah, limiting belief is definitely something we have to look at.
We got to check ourselves constantly, yo, because I live in a space now, and it's a weird space. It's a very weird space where I no longer put barriers on myself. And it's crazy because that's not really a thing as an adult. But because I know how much baggage I had to move forward with nothing. So now I feel as if you told me, Irv, do you want to be president of the world? I'm going to say, president of our country. If I really wanted to, yeah, I would shoot for it.
Yeah, that's big. Even this literally happened this afternoon with my wife. And as you said, I practice NLP, so I know better. But I'm studying to get a certification, right? And I was like, I was thinking, man, if I don't pass the test, man, I'm thinking that maybe she was like, whoa, why are you even talking like that? Why are you?
You shouldn't pass the test because you thought like that, bro.
Right. So
that's why you would not pass the test because you're thinking like that.
Right. So just like you said, we have to be like diligent and we have to be like the warriors of our own mind sometimes on the front line, catching how we think, how we feel, how we're speaking, catching all of that.
Malcolm Gladwell had a book called Strangers?
Outliers.
No, that was his second book. He had a first book, I think it was called
Tipping Point.
Strangers, when he spoke about Sandra Bland and her interaction with the police officer. So take it into context of our body language, right? And limiting beliefs and also having biases that we don't know, right? So let's just say your interaction, you've had a couple of bad interactions with a group of folks or a certain type of person. Maybe it's a person in law enforcement that looks a certain type of way, whatever, and vice versa. Because of our experience, and you could also attest this or attribute this to post-traumatic stress disorder in a sense, PTSD, or some type of trauma, but a cop comes to you, and it happens to me all the time, and I'm nervous, right? Like, because if I'm being pulled over or something, I'm nervous. Right? And they're like, wait, like in their minds, they're taught, right? If someone's nervous, that means that they're guilty of something. So you got to be careful. My mind, I'm scared of him. He's scared of me, or he or she is scared of me. Think of us having those biases and that like unconscious bias, as well as limiting beliefs, because you already in our minds, they're the bad guy, we're the good, or they're whatever. That interaction by itself, because no one checked their baggage, because I'm going back to checking their baggage. No one checked their baggage or removed their baggage and looked at the situation without any bias, just looking at it like it's just a situation. That by itself causes the friction, because again, human beings were chemicals, and our bodies emote, or it gives off a certain chemical to the next person, no matter how far or close you are. It can. That's why you haven't seen somebody like, yo, damn, I miss this person, because our bodies are chemicals. So my chemical reaction, that person's chemical reaction, boom, an explosion. Now we're both at it, and we're both of our angers, we're both angry, stress heightened, all that stuff. Something bad is going to happen here.
I gotta go. Oh, my bad.
Go ahead. No, go
I was
ahead.
gonna share a funny story. So I was part of like it's a private group, right? So I'm speaking very vague, but it was for men, a very diverse group. And we had a meeting in a park in New York, right? And cops came into the park. And I mind you, I haven't been in the street since 2006. When cops came, me and the few brothers that was part of that meeting that day, we ran. And the white people, the white people ran towards the cops. We ran away from the cops. And we had no clue why we were even running. But we were scared for some reason. And then when everything settled down, the smoke was clear, it was like, yo, why did you run? And we was like, yo, bro, well, we're from cops shoot people. What you talking about? Why did we run? They was like, oh, okay, well, I thought they were coming to help. So, you know what I mean? But it just goes back to what you were saying, yeah.
Yo, an experience. I'm headed to an NCJR meeting. I went through, because there's 2 locations. That's the North Central Jersey Association of Realtors, right? It was a Friday. I went to the wrong building. I went to the one in Morristown. They're meeting in Wayne. Cool. And I'm 20 minutes early. So for me to get to Morristown to Wayne, it was like a 30-minute window. So I'd have been somewhere around 10 minutes late. So I'm like, damn. And it was a big meeting because we were talking about a lot, and I could not miss it. And I didn't want to be late. I'm speeding, bro. I'm speeding. On 24, state trooper jumps behind me, hits his lights. Boop. Caller's right here. He sees me. He looks at me. He's like, where you going? I'm like, I'm going to work. I'm thinking whatever. But again, I didn't approach it in no way. I just was like, damn, like, you got me. Like, I was speeding. I'm on my way to a meeting, this, that, and the third. I approached it with no bias, no nothing, just super calm, having a calm, regular conversation. Bro, you know, he's like, yo, I hope you make it to your meeting. Have a good one. Slow down. I mean, he would have nailed me. I was going way above the speed limit. He would have nailed me. Easy. He had his radar gun and everything. I didn't see that guy, nowhere near. Because I approached it different, I checked my baggage. And that's how we even, when we're dealing with clients, you want raw success, best advice. When we're dealing with clients, people, if you are meeting with someone, check all your baggage, all your biases. Go into the meeting mind open. Be a sponge. Go into the meeting mind open.
And that's also with the results, right? Not like, yo, I'm going to fail. And so with the people and whatever the goal is, mind open.
Mind open.
Yeah. And I do want to take the time now to say that not all cops are bad. That's not what I'm saying, because I train with cops. You know, definitely got some good people that are cops, so salute to them. But however, I can't deny my experience of where I'm from and what has happened.
Absolutely.
Indeed. I have to ask this real estate question because it's a question that came up with some of my peoples. As someone who's just getting into real estate, they're not sure if they should purchase a multifamily first as their first property or a single family. Can you speak to that?
It's a great question. It depends on the person. Believe it or not, it depends on the person. Remember, we were talking about appetites and what you should do. Are you okay with being a landlord? Are you okay with being the person that's in charge of the maintenance? Or you just kind of want to sit back and just do your own thing and only take care of your own property, right? Because that's a whole different business. Being a landlord is a whole different business. It's not an easy business, but it's worth it. And you know, whatever good doesn't come easy, but it's not easy for sure. It's a process, and there's things that you got to do. But if you don't have that risk tolerance, or you don't have that flexibility in your schedule to be that good landlord, then I would say get a single family home. Get a single family home, start from there, and then maybe buy another single family home, or buy a condo, and then buy a townhouse. And once you get to that point where you're comfortable with owning a few multi or single family homes, because the biggest thing that you want to do, the most important thing that you want to do, is build a Rolodex of professionals that can fix things when they go astray. You want to find the right team. You're building your team. You're going to find a good lawyer. You want to find a good electrician, a good plumber, a reliable one, a contractor, general contractor, cleanup, landscaper. Once you have that solid team, that solid Rolodex, it's a lot easier for you to maneuver. It's a lot easier for you to maneuver. You basically have the ability to do whatever you want, but you just got to have the right team. Because most of the time, the biggest stress for landlords is, oh, I got to go out and fix this, and who do I call, and they're going to charge me, and all this other stuff. You got to find the right team, and it takes time to find that right team. Like, you're not going to just jump out there and inherit a great team, because they might do great work for Mac, but they're not going to do great work for me because they don't know me. And now I'm at the bottom of their customer list, and they got people like they've been working with for like 10 years. So you got to understand that. The math behind it too is there's certain deductions and tax benefits to having a multi than having a single family, such as like you could do like your marketing, and then you could depreciate the asset at a certain level so you can get a tax benefit, so on and so forth. Talk to an accountant. I'm definitely not an accountant, but these are just definitely different things that you could look at. Where was it? Berkshire Hathaway. Where is it? Berkshire Hathaway? Warren Buffett was buying single family homes throughout, like even before the pandemic and during the pandemic, right? Like, because it's a great investment vehicle, especially right now. Like long term, it's a great space to be in, because most municipalities, most cities, most governments, they're looking at the ability to do flex zoning, where you'll be able to have a multi and maybe do an accessory dwelling unit, ADU in the back, or you'll be able to build something on the top. So you'll create more housing opportunities, and you don't have to go into that 3-family or 2. It'll help you out with your tax basis, and you build it so you know that it's 100% done the right way. So there's a lot of advantages to that. And you could start, like, I think one of the reasons why a lot of corporations started buying single family homes is to basically landlock too. They need to landlock. Landlocking means basically having the land and the property locked up, and it's in their investment portfolio, and no one's going to buy it or sell it. And that's why we have a lack of housing now, in a sense, because there's a lot of institutional investors. I'm not talking about the LLC owners. I'm talking about the major institutional investors that's buying hundreds and hundreds of units, not the 2-3 unit guys, 4 or 5 unit guys. I'm talking about the people that have thousands of units across our country. Specifically, if you want to look at Atlanta is like 70% institutional investor owned, hence why you can see that they're going through what they're going through in terms of just the poverty, the fact that, you know, that's there was the squatters and all these other things. And it's because a lot of the property in these specific in that downtown area is locked up. And the institutional investors don't sell. Why would they sell it? Their bases are so low, and they have so much equity that they can leverage. Why? Doesn't make any sense for them to sell it unless government does something different and tax them different and make them like have to put it back on the market. But putting my hats on both heads, is that fair to the institutional investors that got it first
Yeah.
Or do we want to, or what's more important, is it us doing what's right in terms of business or what's right in terms of people? Because we know that people need housing and we need to provide people with ownership opportunities, not just rental, but ownership opportunities. Because so that can change, like, you know, some of the crime, because I know they got public safety issues out there, stuff like that. And that is what you usually find in a high rental type of area, right? Like you'll see, because everyone is more so transient in terms of like they're coming in, coming out. They're not like more.
They're not invested.
No, they're not invested in.
Yeah.
So while you're on that subject, real quick, can you tell us about your shirt and the saying? Because I think it ties in, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
housing, not handcuffs.
Yeah, so there's there's this term called NIMBY, not in my backyard, right? There's a lot of municipalities, a lot of cities, a lot of governments. Some of them are in LA, I think Washington, LA, and a couple other places where they're trying to criminalize homelessness. Criminalizing homelessness. I mean, like being able to lock people up because they're homeless. Where that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I don't think people choose to be homeless, right? I think that there's a big misconception that all homeless people are bad or drunkards or drug addicts, so on and so forth. The new face of homeless people right now are college students, professionals that can't afford the price of housing, so they're living in their cars.
Or a person from the middle class who lost their job.
Easily. Average American only has $600 in savings in their account. $600? How can you, like, if something goes crazy, you don't have a bounce back. And especially in our communities, we don't have that ability to ask mom and pop. Or if we do, we can't keep asking them because they're only at a certain level.
They're depleted.
So it's one of those things where we're attacking people that can't do, or they're not in a position to do at a certain point in time, versus us helping them. And I'm not coming at it from a socialism perspective where we give everybody everything. I'm not saying that. But I also want to say that housing has become extremely unaffordable, even to rent. Even to rent is unaffordable. It's actually cheaper to own than it is to rent. It's just harder to own because it's a tougher process, right? So we got to understand that these people are not out there by choice. There's no way. It's raining like cats and dogs outside right now. There's no way that someone says, I'd rather be here outside in the rain in torrential storms than in the home. That is not their choice. They're defaulted into the streets. And I think that this is a long time issue within our country that we must fix.
I've heard you say that you can trace back most of our issues from due to housing or lack of housing.
Lack of housing.
Can you get into that?
Yes. Crime. I told you again, in the area where people don't have that foundation, like it's very tough for them to function. So if I'm not getting, let's just say I'm a 12-year-old and I'm a 12-year-old, I'm not getting enough sleep. Even if my mom has a 1-bedroom apartment, I got 4 brothers, all of us living in that 1-bedroom apartment. I don't have a space or a place to call my bed. I'm not getting enough sleep. She's at work, this, that, and the third. Guess what? Now I start looking for other opportunities because I don't feel comfortable in my home. I feel like I got to do something because I got to get it, right?
I mean, that's why I started selling drugs. I tell everybody, my mother raised me right. It was being broke, you know? And not to say I was just sitting on my butt not looking for work. Nah, that definitely wasn't it. A lot of people have that misconception.
So a lot of it is back to housing. So that 12-year-old kid doesn't have a foundation. He goes to school next morning. He didn't get a good night's sleep. He didn't sleep on the bed. Guess what happened? He's not learning right. He doesn't have, like, now you have someone trying to put him on some EAP program because he's not retaining the information. And he's like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm going to drop out of school. Because they're trying to give me these drugs, tell me that I'm ADHD or I'm ADD, whatever the case may be. And now I got to drop out of school. just because I don't want to go through that. I drop out of school, I'm home all day. I can't stay home or whatever. So now I'm walking the streets. I'm chilling, hanging out. That's one example. Next example, let's talk about the person that, the homeless person, right? Okay. They're homeless. They have nothing to eat. They're not getting, like, they don't have income. They're applying for jobs. Job wants a phone number, right?
Mm-hmm. They want an address.
They want an address, right? You need Wi-Fi to do the application. How they gonna do that? All right, bet. So I'm gonna walk into the store. I'm gonna sit in this store, and I'm gonna see if I can maybe borrow somebody's phone. And everybody's gonna say no to them.
That's not practical.
There's not a place that I can go for this to happen. So now I got to find a way to get money to do what I need to do. But when I get money, I'm going to be so hungry, I'm going to use that money for hunger. Or I'm going to be so messed up psychologically, I need to be able to remove myself from this world. So I need something that's going to give me a dopamine rush that's going to take me from the misery that I'm going through. And then I'm going to get addicted to that. And I'm going to need to keep coming back. Again, we're going to trace this back to housing because he didn't have foundation. He don't got a place. He didn't have a place for somebody to call him or for him to get the Wi-Fi, for him to charge his phone, for him to have a cell phone.
Or it was too expensive for him or her to afford. Yeah. So I have a 19-year-old daughter. I have an 18-year-old son. I got a 25-year-old daughter, right? Starting their lives. What would you suggest to them, to get into the housing market? What would you say? And also, like, keep in mind, part of me, what I'm thinking about is the single mom or the father with 2 jobs. And he was like, yo, all of that what my man is saying, all of that sounds good. I agree. But I don't have the money. I'm actually the one with the $600 in my savings.
Absolutely.
So what do I do? How can I get in?
You have to, and this is the toughest part. You're going to have to be gritty. You're going to have to do a lot legally. You might have to do some DoorDash, some Uber Eats. You might have to do some cutting your grass, all that stuff, just so you can build your bank. I want you to build your bank to the point where you're at least, you have some cushion there. And some cushion, I'm not talking about $100,000. I'm not just where you at least know, worst case scenario, I got something in my account. I worked hard. I put your head down for 12 months, grind out, sacrifice, right? 12 months, grind out. Then I want you to start looking for a better network because your network failed you. Your network failed you. Your network of folks should have been like, oh, you know what? I think you should do this. Here's an opportunity here. This is like, you could do so much better. Like, I need you to do this. I tell you, truth, like, I'll be lying to you if I didn't say that my network got me to where I am. I told you that. I'm very transparent. Like, the network of people, your village, you got to be okay with changing your village and being okay with saying no to the people that you love, whether it be family, friends, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, cousins, loved ones, whatever. You put them to the side for now. Because right now, it's about you. And the best gift that you can give to the world is the better version of you. You need to be able to give that better version of you. So that better version of you, that's what you're going to do. So I want you to keep your head down for 12 months, grind out. Cut out all of the BS, anything that you do ancillary, cut it out. Let's bank. And during that time, you're going to build a great habit. You're going to build a habit of saving. You're going to be able to remove yourself from a lot of people because you're going to be hustling so much. And only people that's going to go with you or is going to keep up with you are the people that truly love you. It's not going to be the ancillary folks that just want to hit you up to hang out. There's going to be the people that's going to ride with you, that's going to check on you when you're doing those double shifts and all that stuff, and you're doing the Uber and DoorDash overnight, Instacart, all that crazy stuff. Those are the people that you're going. That's your solid team right there. Cool. After that, I need you to be uncomfortable. Take yourself out of that mix and put yourself into a better network of folks. Join different groups. Talk to people like you. Talk to people like back. Have conversations. Ask and ask them or ask you and say, yo, I'm looking into getting into the fashion space. Who should I talk to? Do you got somebody to connect me to? And if you don't have that, fine. You got social media, right? There's 6 degrees of separation. Not before social media. Now it only takes one click. One click, you can get to a CEO. One click, you can get to a politician. One click, you can get to a fashion designer, a real estate professional, an attorney, an appraiser. One click. What's your excuse? Because if it was Netflix, you would have been doing Netflix. If it was IG, just scrolling on IG, you'd have been doing that.
Or trying to get some sex.
Right? No. You got to grind. And if you want it, you'll get it. And if you don't want it, you're not going to get it. Like I'm telling you, like it's behavioral. When somebody wants something bad enough, they're going to do whatever they need to do in order for them to get it. It's behavioral.
So I had a quick question. All right. So within the real estate industry, most agents fail within the first 3 years. I think it's close to like 90%. What advice can you give aspiring agents, new agents, or agents that are struggling to succeed? And why do you think the failure rate is so high?
I would say, first, trust the process. Don't rush the process. You got to trust it, right? Like, oftentimes agents come into the industry with a big misconception, like, oh, I'm going to make money right away. And it's a process, right? If you were to close or you go under contract as soon as you got out of real estate school and signed on with a broker, it would still take somewhere around 45 to 60 days before you get paid. Right? Because the average closing is 45, 60 days.
Yes.
Before you do all of that, you got to understand the sales contract. You got to find out what your sale and business language is. And I'm not talking about the jargon, the business jargon. I'm talking about how you communicate with clients, how you communicate with colleagues, so on and so forth. That comes with experience. Then you also have to understand the nuances of the industry, which is there's going to be multiple offers on property. So you got to learn how to negotiate. If you don't know how to negotiate, you're going to be at a disadvantage. You're going to put your clients at a disadvantage. So you got to negotiate. And negotiate isn't, oh, the price is $500. I want to offer you $495, $490, this, that. No. It's you being able to get into the ZOPA, the zone of possible agreement. And that's not the easiest thing to do because you have to be able to retract the information from the other side, which is either the buyer's or the seller's agent, and then speak to your client and get them to agree to whatever it is where that agreement can happen, which is the middle. Oftentimes what happens is agents get caught into the ego. They don't understand the business language and people's business behaviors. They may take something personal when it should all be professional. And that's one of the biggest hindrances, right? You have to understand, like, this is a dance. Too much to the left, you're going to fall. Too much to the right, you're going to fall. You got to be able to balance yourself and be in the middle. The middle point, that's the zone of possible agreement. And it's part of the negotiation. And you got to make sure that you get there each and every time. But it takes certain things to happen in order for you to get there. And you got to make sure that you're on point enough in order to make those things happen.
So, I'm not in the industry like the both of you. Would you say you as a top selling agent, and this is not to, not to challenge anything you said. What do I know? But do you agree with that as a top, everything he says, is that like things that you apply?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I first got into the industry, my mentor at the time said, be consistent for at least 2 years before you expect to start earning income. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly how it happened. The first year was challenging. The second year was a little better. But then the third year, as you said, I started learning how to speak to the clients.
Yeah. One thing that you did that was, I would say, I don't know if it was strategic, right? But as a client, you know, he sold one of my properties.
Oh, dope.
It definitely made me feel, I guess you could say, comfortable, right? So because I knew you personally, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, I was like, man, can Mac really like sell my house properly? Does he know what he's doing? You feel
Yes,
me?
he does.
So you brought your mentor with you to the meeting.
Yes.
And so that just like that settled me. And so is that part of like the whole learning the business
I'm
language?
not happy with that though.
Oh, okay.
I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy that he couldn't just make you do it. That I'm like, so one of the things that I feel like as people, we need to be confident in our people, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, and don't question them. Because if there was someone else, we wouldn't be questioning them. So I love the fact that you used them, but you should approach that with trust. Like I've trusted my mentee, which is, I think he was 19, 20, to sell some of my personal properties on his own. He did a really good job, and I trusted him with that. Simply because, again, I want to be able to pay it forward. I want to be able to give people the opportunities that I got without anything over it, without any crutches, without any support. Nah, it's my brother. Eat. And if you do me wrong, well, I'll charge that to the game. And I'll be okay with charging that to the game.
Love that. I would say that, and in addition to, he helped me clean my backyard, and I just knew like, wow, he got the shoes on and everything. He's picking up dirt and branches. I'm like, man, he don't even got to do this.
True story. So I used to work out the branch in Maplewood, the Coldwell Banker branch in Maplewood. I was a team leader there. Then I became an assistant manager there. And I was looking at Mac's numbers. He was right down the street at Keller Williams. I was like, yo, this is a good dude. I was reaching out to him. I think I might still have text messages trying to recruit him over to us because he was a solid dude, positive dude. You could tell, like, me looking at his business, I'm like, his business is growing. He's doing all the right things. So that's why I said, like, we got to trust our people and invest in our people and trust, like, that they'll get the job done. Because oftentimes I see we go outside of our circle or outside of our network to do things for exactly that same reason, right? Like we want the privacy or because we know each other. I don't want to cross the lines. No, I'd rather put food on your table than on anyone else's. I'd rather put food on your table because you're my brother. You're my sister. You're my people. You're part of my network, regardless of whether you're black, green, brown, orange, white, whatever the case may be. If you're part of my network, I want to make sure you eat.
I love that. So as we start to land the plane, right, I got a few more questions.
Yeah.
How do you juggle all of your duties and responsibilities? You know, Mac and I, we always talk about the challenges that we face as husbands, as fathers, and, you know, entrepreneurs. And me, I have a, job also, and my creative work that I do, just juggling all of that stuff, also, taking care of myself. And I see you're fit,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Definitely. So how do you manage and handle your fitness? You've mentioned a few times your son, he's play side, just all of that stuff.
So life is a dance. Life is a dance. And again, you can't go too left, you can't go too far right, and you got to be able to dance. And sometimes it's dancing to a specific beat, it can be dancing to a song, but you got to dance knowing that you have an end goal. Right? You got a finish line. There's an end to this dance, right? I would say you approach every situation in terms of priorities. What's your priority right now? And let your family, friends, and associates know what those priorities are so that they're part of it. Not just keeping it to yourself and just doing, but having them be part of it so they understand why you're doing these things. Oh, true, you're at the studio. Why are you at the studio? Oh, because I'm building my podcast, or I'm building this network of folks. Oh, true. I see you doing a lot of signings and stuff like that. Or what do you? Oh, because this is my way of getting into the financial industry. So if there's anyone that you can plug me in with, that'd be great. True, I see you into fitness. You're doing your pull-ups and all that stuff. Yeah, because I want to keep my body right. And if you know anyone else that want to get their body right, please reach out to me too. I would love to connect with them. We have to be able to speak what we're doing and manifest it, and also let our network and our loved ones know what we're doing so they can support us along the journey. Most of the time, they're just confused. Like a lot of times people are confused. They don't know what you're doing because you don't tell them what you're doing. When you tell them, A, it's accountability, B, it's also being transparent. So we got to be transparent in what we say and what we do, and it all has to flow. And if they don't hold you accountable, that means they're not a good partner. That accountability is 100% important. It is more important than their needs, their wants, whatever. And I even say this for my son, right? Like he knows how important work is to me, right? Yesterday I was at a soccer game, at his soccer game, for the championship, but that was the pre-championship game. So that was like whatever, the pre-championship game. And I had to jump on a Zoom and do that Zoom at the company that you're talking about that my boy is part of. And I did it. And he was okay with it, right? Thank God it was in between like the interim of the break time, which is great. But while I was down there, I jumped on the phone and I did the Zoom. And he knew that I was doing that because he's part of it. Like people should want, your circle, your tribe should want you to succeed. And that means that they support you too through the ups, downs, good, bad, and indifferent. Because when you get to the next level, they're going to be benefactors of that. They're going to be beneficiaries of that.
And I also see too that you're at the game. So you're also making effort to do your best
Yes.
with everything that's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're not saying part of yourself. You're not saying I can't go because I have a Zoom at 12. You're like, okay, I'm going to go. However, at 12, I'm just throwing that number out there. Yeah. At 12, I got to hop on a Zoom.
I think it was at 11 or 12. So that's exactly what happened.
Another question that I wanted to ask, just again, as a managing broker, you are pretty much the head of that office, and you are the leader of many agents. Mm-hmm. What are the three core characteristics of a good leader in your, outside of just real estate though, just leadership in general? That's what, because you're a leader overall. I see you in the community. I see you talking to youth. So, like, if you're looking for leadership, what is
so
it? So,
the three characteristics of a great leader, in my opinion, you have to be able to take feedback, right? Mm-hmm. Then you have to be able to reflect. That's two. And then it's implement. Three.
Okay. I love that. Speaking to the youth, what is your core message when you go out and speak to the youth? What's your core message to them?
What do you think it would be?
Me learning about you. Work hard.
That's one of them. I tell them they can be whatever they want to be. Don't listen to anyone and anything that tells you that you're not what you want to be or you can't be what you want to be. And I tell them, I'm not trying to sound cliche. I'm not trying to tell you that, oh, you could be Michael Jordan or anything like that. But I can tell you, you could be whatever you want. Plus, you could be better than Jordan. You just got to put in the work. You could be better than him. You could be, we're seeing better than Jordan. It's a different time, of course, and I'm going to give the GOAT all the credit, but you could be better than them.
So do me a favor, in short words, look at your camera and tell them that.
My youth, our friends, the future of our world, y'all can be whatever you want to be in this world. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't be who or what you want. The world is your oyster. It's all about the work that you put in, how bad you want it, and you doing all of the things that you need to do to get there. It's not going to be easy, but I guarantee you it's going to be worth it.
So you've referenced a few books. What is your favorite book and why?
That's a good question.
And we're leaders over here, by the way. Leaders and readers.
That's a good question. There's a couple, right? So personally, I will say the Bible, personal. on a personal level. You need to be able to find a center, whatever that center is, the higher power, whatever you serve, you find that center, right? Outside of that, I would say The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a really great book for you to read. The next, Robert Greene's Power. That's a great, 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. That's a great book as well. What other book can I say that really pushed me? David Goggins' You Can't Hurt Me.
It's a good one.
So those are three that I would say like people should read. And Angela Duckworth's Grit too, because that's what we kept talking about.
I haven't read that one. I'm definitely gonna look into it. What do you want to be remembered for? What is your legacy? If you can tell us in one sentence.
Jeez, I've never been asked that question. I don't even know how to respond to that. Oh my God.
You got it here first. Raw Success Podcast.
How do I want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as the person that made a way for the people that thought that they couldn't. That's what I want to be remembered as.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And that's authentic. I've never even been asked that question, but I just visualized myself in my last days and how I would want people to continue. And that's what I came up with.
Tell the people how they can find you.
You can find me on social at Irv the Power Broker, but definitely you can reach out to Mac. Without Mac, I wouldn't be here, so I appreciate him. You can reach out to True for sure. Our producer Lewis, he's here too. Like these are the guys that's making this happen. That's going to change the world. Like follow them, follow their podcast. It's just the beginning of some amazing things that they'll do for sure. And I thank y'all, man. I think this is a great conversation. It's a thought-provoking conversation. It's the beginning of many great things. I'm going to manifest that. I'm going to speak to that. And I see it, right? Like, it's just going to be a matter of time where y'all, I'm going to be calling y'all and speaking to y'all assistant in order to get back on. So I look forward to it.
You got a direct line.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it, man. It's such a blessing, man. Y'all keep winning, though.
I appreciate it. Tell a friend to tell a friend, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. My man came over here and dropped heavy gems. You're going to have to watch this 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Peace.